Have you ever stopped to think what it would be like to be the first? The first to open your eyes and see a world untouched. The first to breathe the pure air of a perfect garden. The first to know love, loss, and pain. I am Eve. My name means life, and I carry that weight every single day. Some know me as the woman who brought sin into the world. Others see me only as a rib, an afterthought in creation. But my story is so much more than that. I knew Eden. I walked with God in the cool of the evening. I heard His voice calling my name among the trees. I experienced perfection, and then I lost it. But I also knew grace. Mercy. The promise of redemption. Today, I want to share my story with you, not as a cautionary tale, but as a testimony that even in our greatest failures, God does not abandon us. That even when we fall, He has already prepared a way back. This is my story, the story of the first woman, the story of every woman. If you believe in the power of this story to touch hearts and transform minds, subscribe now. Together, we can bring these teachings to those who haven't yet had the chance to hear them. My first memory is of light. Not the ordinary light you know, filtered through clouds or window panes, but pure light. Vibrant. Alive. I opened my eyes and the world was born with me. There were colors I have no words to describe. The sky was bluer than any ocean. The grass beneath my feet was soft as silk, and every leaf gleamed as if it had been painted moments before. And there was silence. Not the empty, frightening silence, but a silence full of peace, full of possibility. I stood up, and my body responded perfectly. There was no pain. No weariness. Just life. That's when I saw him. Adam. He was standing there, watching me with eyes that reflected the same wonder I felt. But there was something more. Recognition. As if he had been waiting for me. He approached slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle and filled with admiration. "This one," he said, smiling, "is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." I didn't fully understand his words in that moment, but I felt something deep within me. A connection. A belonging. He extended his hand. I took it. And in that touch, I knew we were made for each other. Adam showed me the garden. Every corner, every tree, every stream. He knew the name of every creature. The lions that walked peacefully among the flowers. The birds that sang melodies that made my heart race. The butterflies that landed on my shoulders as if greeting me. God made all of this, he told me. And he gave it to us to care for together. Care for, together. Those words resonated within me. I had purpose. I wasn't here by accident. I was created with intention, with love. But there was something even more wonderful. At the end of that first day, when the sun began to set and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, I heard footsteps. They weren't ours. They were lighter, more rhythmic, and they came with a presence that made the air around us vibrate. "He comes," Adam whispered, with reverence in his voice. I looked, and I saw him. God. I cannot fully describe how he appeared to us in that moment. There was no physical form that could contain him, but there was presence. Light. Love so intense it seemed tangible. He walked toward us, and I should have felt fear, but I didn't. I felt a home. "Eve," he said, and my name in his voice was like music. I knelt, not from obligation, but from natural worship. "Rise, daughter," he said gently. "You don't need to bow. You were made in my image." In his image. Me. A woman, made in the image of the creator of the universe. That night, God walked with us through the garden. He showed us the stars he had created. He told us about his plans. He spoke of the future, of children who would fill the earth, of generations that would come from us. "You are my crown," he said. "All of creation exists for you to enjoy. All of this is yours, everything. Except, but there is one tree, he continued, his voice becoming more serious, in the center of the garden. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. From that tree you must not eat, for on the day you eat from it, you will surely die. Die. I didn't know what that word meant. Death didn't exist in Eden, but something in God's voice told me it was serious, important. Why? I asked, the first question I ever asked. Why does that tree exist? God looked at me with eyes full of tenderness. Because love, my daughter, is only true when freely chosen. I don't want servants. I want children. And children need to have choice. Choice. Freedom. Trust. I laid down that first night beside Adam, under a sky filled with stars that twinkled like promises. The garden was silent, but full of life. I could hear the river flowing in the distance, the gentle rustling of leaves, the peaceful breathing of the creatures around us. Everything was in perfect harmony, and I was at peace, complete, loved, created with purpose. How could I know, on that first innocent night, that this peace wouldn't last forever? How could I imagine that I myself would be the cause of its breaking? But in that moment, I knew none of this. In that moment, there was only gratitude. Thank you, I whispered to the sky, to the Creator who had walked with us. And I believe he smiled. The days in Eden unfolded like poetry. Every morning, I woke to the song of birds and the golden light of the rising sun filtering through the leaves. Dew sparkled on flower petals like tiny diamonds. And every morning, there was something new to discover, a type of fruit we hadn't tasted, a corner of the garden we hadn't explored, a creature that came to greet us with curiosity in its eyes. Adam and I developed a routine. We cared for the garden together. He pruned. I planted. We talked with God in the evening. We slept under the stars, lulled by the sound of the river. It was simple. It was perfect. But there was something in me that began to stir. A curiosity, a restlessness. It wasn't discontent, not exactly. It was more like a hunger to understand, to know more deeply. I watched Adam and saw how he knew every plant, every animal. He had been here before me. He had named all the creatures. He had walked with God alone first. Sometimes I wondered, what is my unique role? I was the helper, the companion. But who was I beyond that? It was on one of those mornings of reflection that I walked farther than usual. My feet carried me almost without thinking. And suddenly, I was there. In the center of the garden, there were two trees different from all the others. Majestic, imposing. One was the tree of life with fruits that glowed with inner light. And the other, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was beautiful. Its leaves were a deeper green. Its branches extended like welcoming arms, and the fruits. Oh, the fruits! They hung like jewels, red and golden, gleaming in the sun. I approached. Just to look, I told myself. There's no harm in just looking. I stretched out my hand, not to pick, but to touch. My fingers brushed the bark of the tree. It was smooth, warm, and then I heard a voice. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned quickly. There was a serpent coiled on a low branch. But it wasn't like the other serpents in the garden. This one shimmered. It had eyes that seemed human. Intelligent. Perceptive. Yes, I replied cautiously. It is. The serpent slid closer. I see you here often, it said with a voice smooth as honey. Watching. Thinking. You wonder why God forbade this tree, don't you? My heart raced. Was it wrong to talk about this? Was it wrong to question? He said we would die, I responded. The serpent laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but one of genuine amusement. Die. Oh, my dear. You will not die. I should have left in that moment. Should have run back to Adam. But curiosity held me. Then why did he say that? I asked. The serpent moved even closer, its eyes fixed on mine. Because God knows that on the day you eat from this fruit, your eyes will be opened. You will be like him, knowing good and evil. He's protecting his own power. He doesn't want you to be equal to him. The words hit me like stones thrown into a calm lake. To be like God. To know what he knows. Wasn't that what I wanted? To understand more deeply. To have wisdom. Look at you, the serpent continued, its voice hypnotic. You're intelligent, curious. Why would God create you with such a sharp mind and then limit your knowledge? That doesn't make sense, does it? It didn't. Or did it? I was confused. Think about it, the serpent said, beginning to move away. You have the power to choose your own destiny. You don't need to be dependent on God for everything. You can know for yourself. You can be complete. And then it disappeared among the leaves, leaving me alone with the tree and with my thoughts. I returned to the tree in the following days, always with the excuse that I was just passing by, just looking. But each time, I stayed a little longer. Each time, the serpent's words echoed louder. You will be like God. I wanted that. Not out of pride, or at least I didn't think so at the time. But because I wanted to understand. I wanted to have wisdom. I wanted to be useful to Adam and the garden in ways I couldn't yet be. How could that be wrong? Adam noticed my distraction. You're quiet, he said one evening as we walked through the garden. What are you thinking about? How could I explain? I'm just thinking about our purpose, I said. About who we really are. He smiled and took my hand. We are God's children, caretakers of his creation. Isn't that enough? That word bothered me. Why did it bother me? I prayed that night. For the first time, my prayers weren't just gratitude. They were questions. God, I whispered to the dark sky, why did you give me a mind that questions and then limit what I can know? Why did you make me curious if curiosity is dangerous? I waited for an answer. The wind blew gently, the stars shone, but there was no audible voice. No clear answer. And in the absence of that answer, the serpent's words grew louder. I didn't know then that God had already answered. He had said, trust me. But I was looking for reasons, for logic, for complete understanding. And sometimes, faith requires that we walk without understanding everything. But I hadn't learned that yet. Not yet. It was on a morning like all the others that everything changed. The sun rose. The birds sang. The dew sparkled on the flowers. But within me, a decision was taking shape. I had thought so much, analyzed so much, rationalized so much. And I came to a conclusion. If God truly loved me, he would allow me to make my own choice. He gave me free will, didn't he? And if he didn't want me to eat from the tree, why would he place it right in the center of the garden where I passed every day? It was almost like a test, an invitation. Or so I convinced myself. I found myself once again before the tree. This time, I didn't hesitate as much. I stretched out my hand and touched the fruit. It was warm to the touch, smooth, perfect. And deep down, something in me screamed, no. But I silenced that voice. I had rationalized too much to turn back now. I pulled the fruit. It came off easily, as if it had been waiting. I looked at it in my hand, so small. So simple. How could something so small change everything? The serpent was right, I told myself. God was being overprotective. Like a father who won't let his child grow up. I was ready to grow, ready to know. I took a deep breath, and I bit. The taste was incredible, sweet, complex, layers of flavor that danced on my tongue. For a moment, nothing happened. See, I thought, everything's fine. God was exaggerating. But then, something changed. It wasn't immediate. It was gradual, like clouds slowly covering the sun. My eyes were opened, not physically. They were already open, but I saw things I hadn't seen before. And I immediately wished I hadn't seen them. I looked down and, for the first time, I noticed I was naked. My body, which before was just natural, neutral, good, now seemed exposed, vulnerable, wrong, shame. That was the first new emotion I experienced, and it was horrible. I covered myself instinctively with my hands, but it wasn't enough. I needed more coverage, more protection. I began gathering leaves frantically. Fig leaves, large and green. My hands trembled. What have I done? What have I done? Then I remembered Adam. I needed to find Adam. I ran through the garden, still holding the bitten fruit, leaves clumsily attached to me. I found him near the stream, tending to some plants. He turned and smiled when he saw me. Eve, I was looking for you. He stopped. His eyes fell on the fruit in my hand, then on the leaves I had tied around my body. What? What have you done? His voice was filled with fear. And instead of honesty, instead of immediate regret, something worse came out. Justification. The serpent told me it was okay, I said quickly. She said we wouldn't die, that our eyes would be opened, that we would be like God. I extended the fruit to him. See, I didn't die. Everything's fine. Try it. Adam looked at the fruit, then at me, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. He knew it was wrong. God had said it clearly, but there I was, his wife, his companion, offering it to him. And I hadn't died. At least not in the way we thought we would die. He took the fruit. And even now, after everything, I wonder, did he take it out of curiosity? Out of love for me? Out of fear of losing me? Maybe we'll never fully know, but he bit. And then we both stood there, covered in leaves, holding pieces of fruit with newly opened eyes, and the garden, which had always seemed so welcoming, suddenly seemed threatening. The shadows were darker. The silence was heavy, and we knew we had broken something precious, something sacred, our innocence, our perfect communion with God. Adam was the first to hear it. Shh, he said suddenly, his body going rigid. Do you hear that? Footsteps. The same gentle, rhythmic footsteps we heard every afternoon. God. It was time for his daily walk through the garden. Normally, we would run to meet him, eager to share our day, to hear his voice, to be in his presence. But now hide, Adam said, grabbing my hand. And we ran. We hid behind trees, among the bushes, desperate not to be seen. But how do you hide from God? How do you hide from the one who sees everything? I heard his voice calling through the garden. Adam, Eve, where are you? There was sadness in his voice. Not anger. Not yet. Just sadness. Like a father looking for children who have run away. Adam squeezed my hand. I could feel him trembling. Or was it me trembling? Both. Where are you? God called again. And finally, Adam responded, his voice cracking. I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid. A silence. And then the question that pierced my soul. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Adam came out from behind the tree. I followed him, my heart beating so hard I thought it would explode. And there he was. God, our Creator, our Father, our friend. But now, for the first time, I couldn't meet his eyes. The shame was too great. The woman you gave me, Adam said, and each word was like a knife. She gave me from the tree, and I ate. He blamed me. My companion, my partner, threw me under the wheel. And God turned to me. What have you done? I could have confessed, could have repented, could have said, I was wrong. I disobeyed. Please forgive me. But instead, I did exactly what Adam had done. I blamed someone else. The serpent deceived me, I said, and I ate. Deceived. As if I were just an innocent victim. As if I hadn't chosen. Deliberated. Rationalized. And I saw it in God's eyes. He knew. He knew everything. The silence that followed was the worst moment of my life. God didn't shout. Didn't thunder. He just stood there, looking at us with eyes that contained all the pain in the world. It was the pain of a betrayed father. Of a creator whose children chose another path. And then he spoke. First to the serpent. His voice was different now. Still controlled, but with a threat of judgment that made my skin crawl. Because you have done this, you are cursed among all animals. On your belly you will crawl, and dust you will eat all the days of your life. The serpent, which had been so eloquent, so seductive, tried to speak, but no words came out. Only a hiss. And it began to crawl, disappearing into the grass. Then God turned to me, and I wanted to disappear. Wanted to cease to exist. I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth, he said, his voice soft but firm. With pain you will give birth to children. Childbirth. Children. Concepts I still didn't fully understand, but I felt the weight of the words. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Rule. I looked at Adam, who was standing beside God, his head bowed. The equal partner God had given me would now become what? My superior, my ruler. Something in the created order had been broken, and this was part of the breaking. God then turned to Adam. Because you listened to your wife's voice and ate from the tree I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat from it all the days of your life. Adam raised his head, eyes wide. The ground will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat bread, until you return to the ground, for from it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you will return. Dust. Death. The word we didn't understand before was now clear. We would die. Maybe not at that exact moment, but death had entered the world. And we had brought it. We expected God to destroy us right there. We expected fire from heaven. Immediate end. But instead, he knelt. God, the creator of the universe, knelt before us and began doing something I didn't understand at first. He took the skin of an animal that had to die, had to bleed. The first death we ever witnessed, and he used that skin to cover us. His hands were gentle as he covered my nakedness, gentle as he covered Adam. The garments of skin were warm. Soft. Adequate, much better than the clumsy leaves we had tied. This is grace, he said softly. You tried to cover yourselves. But your coverings weren't enough. They never will be. So I cover you. Tears began to flow down my face. The first time I cried, salty water that burned my eyes and stained my cheeks. Why? I sobbed. Why don't you destroy us? We deserve it. God touched my face. And in his eyes, I saw something I'll never forget. Love. Despite everything, despite the sin, despite the disobedience. Love. Because you are my children, he said. And though there are consequences for choices, there is also hope. He stood up. One day, he continued, his voice taking on a prophetic tone, a descendant will be born from you, Eve. Through your pain, salvation will come. He will crush the serpent's head. He will undo what was done today. I didn't fully understand. How could I? But the word stayed with me. Hope. Even in the midst of judgment, there was hope. Then God did something that broke my heart. You cannot stay in the garden, he said. Not now. Not with access to the tree of life. If you eat from it in your fallen state, you will live forever in that state. And that would be the greatest curse of all. We were being expelled from the only home we knew, from paradise. But it was mercy. I saw that now. Living forever in a state of sin would be hell, not paradise. God led us to the gates of the garden. With every step, I turned, trying to memorize every detail. The flowers I had loved, the trees I had climbed, the river where I had washed, all left behind. At the entrance, God stopped. "Remember," he said, "I do not abandon you. Even outside these gates, I will be with you. You won't see me as you saw me before. Not for now. But I am here." And then he placed cherubim with flaming swords to guard the way back.